The relationship with the BBC has been long and wonderful, but it's the right time for the organisation and myself to go our separate ways.
Looking at that particular litany of offences, it's quite tempting to think he knew exactly what he was doing.
Breaking right now, he's finally out. But Gary Lineker has dragged down the reputation of the British Bashing Corporation so far that I think it's impossible for them to recover. This was too little too late. But trust me, I'm going to give you the true story about his departure, not the story that you've read on the front page of The Sun today. And mark my words, Lineker has been axed, he has been sacked, he has been forced out. This is one of those gentlemen's agreements so that he doesn't feel humiliated. And arguably the guy should be humiliated, right? Given his Instagram post, and this wasn't the first. It wasn't the first Instagram post, but it very, very clearly used a rat to illustrate Jewish people. This was a Nazi trope. And there's a real irony there, given this guy accused the former government of being like the Nazis. Announcing his departure today, Lineker said, "Football has been at the heart of my life for as long as I can remember, both on the pitch and in the studio. I care deeply about the game and about the work I've done with the BBC over many years. As I've said, I would never consciously repost anything anti-Semitic. It goes against everything I stand for. However, I recognise the error and upset that I cause and reiterate how sorry I am. Stepping back now feels like the responsible course of action." Now, I will show you in just a moment how this is far from the first post like this from Lineker. But notably, the director of sport at the BBC, Alex Kajalski, at whom Lineker aimed a dig last week about his lack of TV experience, was not quoted in the press release confirming his departure. Instead, Tim Davie, the BBC's Director General, said in a statement, "Gary has acknowledged the mistake he made. Accordingly, we have agreed he will step back from further presenting after this season. Gary has been a defining voice in football coverage for the BBC over 2 decades. His passion and knowledge have shaped our sports journalism and earned him the respect of sports fans across the UK and beyond. We want to thank him for the contribution he has made." However, his former boss, Danny Cohen, who was director of television at the BBC, said, "Given the anti-Semitic nature of the content Mr. Lineker shared, it is right that he is leaving the BBC. But Mr. Lineker's sharing of the post is a symptom of the problem, not the problem itself. For far too long, the BBC has failed to put a stop to Jew hate and blatant breaches of impartiality on its services." So trust me when I say the Sun's headline today should have been "Disgraced Jew hater Gary Lineker forced out of the BBC." And it was very clear in his video, which he released on the Instagram platform, that this is a man who knows the game is up. Analysis from Alex Phillips in just one moment, but first, here's what he had to say.
Last week, I shared a post here on Instagram that contained an emoji that has awful connotations. Unfortunately, I did not see the emoji. If I had, I would never ever have shared it. The minute I was made aware, I quickly deleted the post and went on to make an apology. I would like once again to say I'm sorry unreservedly for the hurt and upset caused. It was a genuine mistake and oversight, but I should have been more diligent. I know that. I've stood up for minorities and humanitarian issues and against all forms of racism all of my life, including, of course, anti-Semitism, which I absolutely abhor. There's no place for it and never should be. So I think it's best for all concerned that I step down from BBC presenting duties altogether and not do next season's FA Cup or World Cup. The final day of the Premier League season on Sunday will be my last show. It's been a pleasure and a huge privilege working with the BBC for 30 years, especially hosting Match of the Day, a programme that is so close to my heart and an integral part of my life. I'd like to thank all of the quite brilliant, talented and lovely people both in front and behind the camera that I've worked alongside for 3 decades. You're at absolute best. The relationship with the BBC has been long and wonderful, but it's the right time for the organisation and myself to go our separate ways. Thank you also to all of you for your incredible support and love over so many years. It means the world to me. I'll see you all on Sunday.
So that's a broken man and he deserves it. But to suggest that this was one rogue post is bullshit. Ben Green's actually been doing brilliant work on this. He's put together a whole load, but let me just show you a couple. Okay? So, Lineker compares Israel to the Nazis for like the 100th time. May 2025, just days before the rodent post, you can actually see Lineker go further down the Hamas rabbit hole until he gets to full-blown anti-Semitism. Anyone comparing Israel to the Nazis should not be on the BBC. This is beyond the pale. He goes on, Mohsen Madawi is a hero to Lineker. After Lineker hailed Madawi as a hero on Instagram, it was revealed in a US court that the Columbia student activist told a gun shop owner in 2015, "I like to kill Jews." Gary Lineker pushes for a one-state solution. In March 2025, Lineker posted a video suggesting a one-state solution effectively ending the only Jewish state. That would be the end of Israel. It didn't start on October the 7th. Just 5 days ago, Lineker was desperate to provide, quote, context for an invasion massacre that started a war. And to do this, he promoted a clip from Operation Cast Lead in 2009. Same Hamas propaganda then as now. And Lineker posts a video of the Irish comedian Tag Hickey. This was just weeks after Hickey had returned from the funeral of eliminated Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. Hickey regularly defends proscribed terror groups Hamas and Hezbollah. Lineker labelled this video facts. And in June 2024, Lineker posted a fake Cristiano Ronaldo video about Gaza. The video was manipulated. Lineker never explained this to his Instagram followers or apologised for posting the fake clip. So Alex Phillips, this is a long rap sheet, right? And by the way, I think Lineker has a right to free speech. He just doesn't have a right to take our money while propagating this view, given if you're at the BBC, you are meant to be impartial. And the Director General, Tim Davies, said that he was going to crack down on that. But what I'm concerned about, Alex, is this propaganda that this was just a mistake. This was just a one-off, Alex, and he had no idea that the rodent had been used by the Nazis. But first, ever wonder why you can't make it through the night without a bathroom trip anymore? By your 30s and 40s, up to 1 in 3 adults deal with nocturia, waking up to pee, basically. And sadly, it only gets worse with age. Your bladder holds less, your sleep gets lighter, and hormonal changes means your kidneys keep pumping out urine instead of saving it for the morning. How annoying. If I get up to use the bathroom, I have to be honest, I'm up for hours trying to fall back to sleep. So that's what led me to try Evening Bean by Verso. It has 3 grams of glycine proven to calm an overactive bladder, dropping nighttime bathroom runs. It also helps you fall asleep faster, stay in deep sleep longer, and feel sharper the next day. Plus, it's melatonin-free and has clinically studied ingredients shown in multiple human studies to calm the mind, support mood, and promote restorative sleep. And it tastes so good! I like to drink it cold, but you can have it hot too. Since starting Evening Bean, I've had fewer bathroom trips at night and wake up refreshed. It isn't just me. Take a look at their reviews from Catherine W. I used to get up to use the washroom 3 times a night. Since using an Evening Bean, I'm only getting up 1 time a night, sometimes none. I fall asleep faster and wake up refreshed. Patricia M. I fall asleep in a lot less time than I used to, and even after getting up for the bathroom, I can get back to sleep easily. So just click the link in the show description or head on over to evening.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken at checkout to save 15% on your first order. Try Evening Bean tonight and wake up feeling refreshed tomorrow. That's evening.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken at checkout to save 15%. But now, back to the show.
Yeah, well, actually, looking at that particular litany of offences, it's quite tempting to think he knew exactly what he was doing. Same time, I don't, I don't understand whether this is arrogance, whether for whatever reason, and Lord knows why, he is so besotted with Hamas propaganda, why he is so besotted with this one issue, what his connection is to the Gaza Strip, why he seems to wake up every morning and feel like he's got to do something about it. I find that astonishing. But also, is this just arrogance that he's doing it because he thinks it's something that makes him seem more popular, that it's the latest lefty love-in to become involved with? Is he doing it because he mistakenly believes that someone like him putting something on Instagram is going to stop Israel dropping bombs in Gaza? I mean, it's not going to have any impact whatsoever. Or is he just sort of naive? I don't really understand what's gone on here with Gary Lineker, but absolutely, you're right, Dan. You work anywhere else, fine, have your freedom of speech. But if your employer says you're in the public eye, you represent us, whatever platform you're choosing to use, and every time you say something controversial, it comes back and reflects on us, we would rather you didn't. Now, whether that would be somebody who works for a bank or somebody who works for a broadcaster, if your employer says at the end of the day, when you do things online, it comes back and reflects upon us, then you should cease and desist, particularly when, I don't care how many millions of followers he's got, is not going to move the needle any way, shape or form. And I don't really understand his obsession with continuously going down this particular route. Who's he speaking to? Who are his friends? Why is he so impassioned on this particular topic? And considering he's so impassioned, why is he also not better learned on this topic? Why has he not actually done his research properly and therefore been able to, identify what is clearly propaganda, which he just keeps retweeting and repeating? If I'm going to repeat somebody's social media post or repost something, I make sure I know who it is, the provenance of it, and if what they're saying is true. It is sloppy for someone in his position with such a big platform to not be doing that. So you have to ask, is this just naivety, or was there a will to actually put out this toxic
But remember,
stuff?
he even argued, Alex, on the BBC that the BBC had made a mistake by taking down that propaganda documentary where they had paid a child of a Hamas leader. So the guy is so far down the rabbit hole. But it's interesting because when you were just saying what drives people to this hatred when it comes to this issue, I had to show you this post from Owen Jones today in relation to the Biden cancer diagnosis, because it really is quite something. So it's responding to Barack Obama's response to the Biden diagnosis. Now, by the way, I think there are loads of legitimate questions to ask about this diagnosis. I do not trust for a single second that this is a brand new diagnosis. It has been timed to deal with the PR fallout from the new book that's about to be released by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson. So put that to one side. But this is just an extreme comment, Alex, from Owen Jones. I watched my dad die from advanced prostate cancer, but then my dad didn't arm a genocide and facilitate the total destruction of a healthcare system, condemning other cancer patients to death. Joe Biden is a monster. He should be treated by medics while he's in prison.
I mean, look, I'm no fan of Joe Biden, but equally, Owen Jones once upon a time wrote a really interesting book called Chavs and sort of became universally popular for saying working class people get sneered at, they get attacked unnecessarily, there's a lot of snobbery in this country. And yet he's now sort of jumped the shark to become one of those people who would think most of the working classes themselves were bigots and racists. But it's something that happens in the independent space, particularly on the left wing, that people jump onto a hobby horse. And in order to get as much attention as possible, they have to keep getting more and more and more extreme with their views. It happens on the right as well. I can think of certain influencers, and I won't name names, particularly in America, who started off being really great value and now just look like they should be sectioned. It's the tragic case of going it alone and having to keep ramping up the volume as high as possible. I think that's the only plausible explanation that these people who at one point seemed otherwise intelligent curmudgeons have gone so crazy on these issues. And to write, look, I don't like Joe Biden, but I just stepped away from that news story about him having prostate cancer, because what was I going to say? Sorry, mate, you're really old. That's horrible. Cancer's a nasty disease. I hope you're okay. Well, that's a bit sort of lily-livered and weaselly. Or am I going to sort of make a mocking joke out of somebody who has a fatal disease? No, because that's just tasteless. So you kind of think, why don't people engage brain? You know, I would look at a story like that and think, I'm just not going to engage with it. There's no value in me adding my voice to that whatsoever. And so when you do have people like Owen Jones saying, my dad died of prostate cancer, it was really vile, I hope you, I mean, it's just, come on, grow up. What's wrong with you?
I'm just going to take one moment, but by the way, as well, and Alex, I won't get you to weigh in on this because I know obviously you do work at Talk, which is owned by the same company, so I'm not going to put you in that position. So don't worry, Alex, I won't ask you to comment on this. But I was so disgusted by the Sun's coverage of this story today. So I was the former executive editor of The Sun. I had a 7-year career at The Sun. We were always very critical of Gary Lineker and his political positions, but then the new editor, Victoria Newton, came in and she has developed this bizarre, special relationship, shall I say, with Gary Lineker. But I think The Sun let down its readers with this propaganda today. So this was how they reported the news. Gary Lineker will announce he is leaving the BBC tomorrow and will not front the 2026 World Cup following an anti-Semitism row. A source told The Sun, trust me, this source is Gary Lineker, right? So this is Gary Lineker talking to The Sun. It is a heartbreaking end to an extraordinary broadcasting career. Now, would The Sun feel the same way if another presenter had said that about Christians, for example? It's just absolutely nuts that they took that position. A source told the newspaper, and again, this would have been Gary. Gary acknowledged his position at the BBC anchoring the most prestigious tournament in the world was untenable and he will not be hosting the World Cup. He offered to step down at the end of the season and did not want the BBC dragged into any further controversy. He remains absolutely devastated by the recent turn of events and is deeply regretful about how his post was interpreted. And I just thought, why? Gary Lineker hates everything about you, The Sun. Like, why are you still doing propaganda for this guy? Very disappointing, very weird. But then again, they did endorse Labour and look at where that has got us. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.